having given God's greeting to the churches and the introduction to this revelation, John now begins to recount, either in person or in his writings, the revelation that God has given to him. And he begins with his greeting to the churches, referring to himself as a fellow servant with the other Christians, in which he shares three things with the people. And he says, I share the distress, the kingdom, and the endurance. So again, there's that kinship he has with the people he's addressing, and a reminder that the people are experiencing tribulation and suffering, but that they share the kingdom that is already in existence. Therefore, they must share that endurance. And so he gives them that greeting and states that he found himself on the island of Patmos, where he had his vision. And immediately he sets that vision in the context of worship, because he says, I was caught up on the Lord's day. So already, being that this is the day in which the community comes to worship, this vision occurs on the Lord's day. This vision is occurring during a time of worship, in which we hear something reminiscent from the book of Daniel. He says, I saw one like a son of man. And his description of that son of man is very, very similar to the descriptions we see in the book of Daniel, when Daniel saw one like a son of man. But in this particular case, this one has descriptions that give very clear, while not direct, indication that the one whom John sees is Jesus himself. Jesus represents himself as the first and the last, and gives an indication that there is a divinity looking over the churches, because he speaks of the 7 lampstands that this vision of Jesus is among, and 7 stars being held in the hands of this one like a son of man. And at the very end of this vision, it says that the 7 lampstands are the 7 churches, and the 7 stars are the spirits or the angels that look over those churches. So already we're seeing a sense of angels looking over these churches in the midst of their tribulation. But this overall vision that John has right at the very beginning of the revelation is one of Jesus Christ. And what are the details of that vision? This one like a son of man is wearing an ankle-length robe with a sash of gold, hair as snow white as wool, eyes blazing like fire, feet gleamed like polished brass. He describes his voice as one like the rush of roaring waters. In his right hand he holds the 7 stars, which are those angels that look over the churches. A sharp 2-edged sword comes out of his mouth, and his face shines like the sun. But what is it that identifies him as Jesus? Well, first he says, I am the first and the last, identifying this one like a son of man with creation and the eschaton. And then he goes on to say, once I was dead, but now I live forever and ever. A clear indication of the one who was slain and who has risen from the dead. The one who lives. And finally, I hold the keys of death and the netherworld. So this one like a son of man holds mastery over life and death. And it is from this one like a son of man that John receives his revelation. In short, John, from the very outset, says he received this from Jesus Christ himself. And it is from this opening vision that John now moves forward to addressing those 7 churches watched over by the 7 angels that are the stars in the hand of Jesus.